Hello everyone, and welcome to the first installment of my own lesser known but awesome heroes videos. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at a much lesser known supporting character of Spider-Man, and that is Hobie Brown, aka the Prowler. Now, when most people think of supporting characters for Spider-Man, they usually think of Madam Web or the Black Cat or Spider-Woman, but almost nobody, and I repeat, nobody has heard of Hobie Brown, which is a shame because I find the Prowler to be an incredibly underrated ally of Spider-Man. Hobie Brown comes from very humble roots, and I do mean humble. Hobie Brown was an African-American teenager who was incredibly smart and intelligent and was a brilliant inventor. However, his ideas for inventing things didn't carry him too far, and about the furthest it got him was a job as a window washer. Yeah, I told you he had humble beginnings. But when he put his amazing engineering skills to the test to try to create a device that could wash windows without endangering human lives, his boss, who was very reminiscent of J. Jonah Jameson in his own right, basically rejected his idea and fired him. And then Hobie pretty much ended up penniless alongside his girlfriend, Mindy. So the only way Hobie could make any money off of his genius ideas was to basically become a criminal. And so he used his engineering skills to create a costume and a few gadgets for himself to basically make him super agile and nimble and strong. And thus he named himself the Prowler. During Hobie Brown's first outings as the Prowler, he actually the first thing he attempted to do was steal money from the Daily Bugle's payroll vault. In fact, whenever he wanted to do this so that he could fund his inventions, while he was stealing money, Peter Parker walks in on him, and Peter Parker sees him, and then this pretty much catches the attention of the entire Daily Bugle, and Hobie, as the Prowler, accidentally grabs Peter and throws him out the window. When that happens, Hobie is overcome with grief and trauma that he believes he may have killed Peter. And when this happens, all the Daily Bugle basically accuse the Prowler of murder, but then, and little do they know, that when Peter is thrown out of the window, he actually changes into a Spider-Man costume and he's unharmed, as we all know. When the Prowler and Spider-Man fight for the first time, the Prowler apologizes to Spider-Man for killing Peter Parker, and of course Spider-Man says that Peter Parker is safe and that the Prowler really needs to change his ways. And so he takes this into account, and from now on, Hobie decides that he'll actually use his costumed identity of the Prowler to help people and become a costumed hero just like Spider-Man. That's pretty much the Prowler's origins. The Prowler would actually turn out to be a very good friend and ally of Spider-Man later on in the superhero's comic book career, seeing as Hobie Brown would actually he would do a great amount of favors for Peter Parker, one of which was the time when Peter Parker was ill with a fever, he actually asked Hobie Brown, who at the time found out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, to basically impersonate Spider-Man to deliver a cure for Peter's fever in order to convince Peter's friends that Peter Parker and Spider-Man are two different people, and thus pretty much saving Peter Parker's secret identity and ruling out any chance that Peter and Spider-Man are one and the same. And on top of that, there was actually a point in the comics where Silver Sable actually blamed Spider-Man for stealing something from S.H.I.E.L.D. And when this happens, the Prowler, along with Rocket Racer, team up to try to find the evidence to clear Spider-Man's name. And when this happens, both Prowler and Rocket Racer, along with the reformed Sandman, would actually form a small group of reformed supervillains to try and do good in New York. At one point, Hobie teams up with his little brother that he got from the Big Brother program in order to join the Defenders. But that didn't go so well, because Valkyrie basically ended up tossing him halfway across the whole harbor and into the water. When that happened, he basically decided that the whole costume superhero thing wasn't working out too well for him, so he retired. He retired being the Prowler for a little bit, and he even married the love of his life, Mindy. And he basically settled down, and he became a very successful architect. The Prowler did get his own. He did get his own very short comic book series during the 90s, but it was only 4 issues though, and that whole comic book series was drawn by Todd McFarlane. I'm not exactly sure if I'm right about that. If I'm wrong, then please say it in the comments. Just finding information on this guy was not an easy task. However, I do believe that Hobie Brown deserves to be a lot more recognized than he is. I believe the only real exposure he's gotten was from the 90s Spider-Man animated series, and that wasn't that much of a faithful portrayal. But it was good nonetheless. I really think that, when people speak of African American superheroes, Hobie Brown is often left out a whole lot because a lot of people seem to not be able to grasp the whole concept of an African American who's actually super smart and can invent various high-tech devices and gadgets. And I think that's one reason why Hobie Brown gets underrated a whole lot when compared to a lot of other comic book heroes. And I think it would have been cool to actually see him on the Spectacular Spider-Man if that show hadn't even gotten canceled. But that's basically all there is about the Prowler. Now that I think of it, there were actually a couple instances in the comics where Hobie Brown's costume and equipment were stolen by a couple of people. The first person to steal his costume was a cat burglar who actually framed Hobie for murdering people and stuff. But then Hobie and Spider-Man were able to take down the imposter version of the Prowler, and there was another Prowler imposter who called himself the Night Creeper, who teamed up with the Vulture, Adrian Toomes, against the Prowler. And on top of that, another cool little interesting fact is that you'll never guess what character influenced Hobie Brown to actually create his suit and his weaponry. When he was working as a window washer, he saw a battle between Spider-Man and Stilt-Man, and he was actually inspired by Stilt-Man to create a costume. That is simply unbelievable. Seriously, Stilt-Man. I know. But yeah, closing thoughts, the Prowler. Really awesome, really interesting character. I hope he gets more exposure in the future. Later.